Welcome to Win the Day from Back to the Bible. I'm your coach, Pastor Nat, and today we're going to talk about living with wisdom. How can you know if you're living inside God's will? This is a common struggle. Sometimes it's clearly evident, while other times it's just hard to know. So, a question we might wrestle with is, should we live with wisdom? How should we live within God's will? Well, James has the answers for us in James chapter 4, beginning in verse 15. Instead, you should say, if the Lord wills, we will live and do this or that. But as it is, you boast in your arrogance. All such boasting is evil. So it is sin to know the good and yet not do it. Let's face it, we live in disturbing times. It's as if the book of Judges was being lived out all over again. People are doing what is right in their own eyes. The people have either forgotten God, they acknowledge God but ignore Him, or they acknowledge God and His will but clearly reject it. Well, James here, he puts a bow on his teaching about submitting to God's will. Last week we observed that planning is not a sin, but when we play God, that is a sin. So today, James says, as it is, you boast in your arrogance. All such boasting is evil. To ignore God's existence is a sin. To know that God exists but reject Him, that also is sin. Playing God, that's no better, that's a sin. Now, for the world, we expect that kind of behavior. It's inexcusable, but expected. But here's the problem. It never works to play God. This is why the world is so broken. This is why we have so many recovery groups. This is why we find self-help and religious books overtaking our bookstores. You see, we're trying to do life our way, but it ends in failure. But for the Christian, we do know God. We know His will. And for us to reject it, or as James puts it here, to know the good and yet not do it, is a sin. It doesn't matter what the issue or opportunity is. If it's outside the will of God, it is a sin. When we say no to God or to His Word, we sin. There is just no way around it. So what's the alternative? Well, James told us in verse 15. He says, if the Lord wills, we will live or do this or that. In all requests and in all planning, we should have a posture that God knows best. We should follow God, not ourselves. Many times we throw that on as kind of an insurance policy or as a pass to live for ourselves. In that posture of, well, until God stops us, if it's His will. But friend, that's dangerous. That kind of life, it's offensive to God. So what should we do? Well, that will be my challenge for you today. The challenge is to submit to God's authority. Now, this isn't easy. It's not easy for me. It's not easy for anyone. We like to push the limits with God. So today, we need to pull back and say, God, You are in charge. I want Your best for my life. Show me what I need to do and not do today. Help me to live in a way that's pleasing to You. When we live within God's will, friend, you know it, we will win the day.